Yes, hello again. I'm still Lillqvist and I still work for Collabora. This talk is about handling missing fonts and dynamically downloading or adding fonts to a running online server. And this is more or less a repeat of the talk in Berlin also, so if you heard that, you will be familiar with this already. The problem here is that when some user loads a document and the document uses fonts that aren't available on the server, and then the document looks bad and the user thinks it's the fault of Collabora Online, which is not nice, of course. And the solution is to maybe tell the user what fonts are missing, so that it's not our fault, it's the document's fault. Whoever created it used bad fonts. And we could tell the server administrators about this, or the user could do that, and then the admins could acquire this font legally and add it to the server, and then they don't need to restart the server, but it will be available to new users creating sessions after that. How this then is implemented, it's actually not that straightforward. There are actually two cases. First of all, either a font is missing completely, or then a font with the same name exists, but it's some different version that doesn't have all the characters or all the glyphs that the document wants to use. And the ideal would, in a way, be, or I would think it would be that you get the information about missing fonts when you load the document, but it doesn't work like that, at least not without some additional coding. But it doesn't actually matter because we have a way to, or we will get this information anyway right after loading the document. And we actually added some years ago an API to find out what fonts have been substituted by other fonts during rendering. I don't remember, I don't know what this was supposed to be used for, but at least it's used now for this feature. However, there are some complications here. This API doesn't really report very exactly what is happening. One issue is that in the document formats, there is typically just the name of a typeface and then some flag telling that we want the italic or bold or etc. versions of that. And this API, when it reports that a font has been substituted by another font, it tells separately the family and style name of the substitution. And it tells that also for fonts that are not missing. Like if the document uses Liberation Serif, this API tells that it has been replaced by Liberation Serif and a style regular, which of course means the same thing. And so that has to be then filtered out and not taken into account. And this is made a bit more complicated by the fact that there is no standard names for these styles. The normal style that is not bold and not italic and so etc. It can be called regular or normal or Roman or book or maybe even something else. So I added some heuristics to bypass these non-problems. When a font has been substituted by itself, actually, it just can be skipped and we don't need to handle that. And also these well-known metric-compatible open source fonts that are substituted for well-known proprietary fonts, we don't need to report those. And then adding fonts to the server on the fly, so that you don't need to restart the server and kill all existing users just for adding a font, was something that was added. This works so that you have a JSON file that lists what fonts you want to add, and when you edit this file and add more fonts to it, the server will then adapt dynamically and add these new fonts. And here you see how the coolwsd.xml file has this fragment called remote font config that has the URL for this JSON file. And then again, this JSON file is kind of simple also. It's an array of fonts or font URIs, and for each URI you can also use a stamp field that you can then increment or change if you want to load a new version of the font in question. Otherwise it checks if the file has changed. And we wanted to implement this in such a way that only the Git processes don't need to have access to these fonts for security reasons, and they need to be visible only to the for Git process, of which there is only one. And one complication was then that the LibreOffice core code and the libraries that it used, they all want to open these font files in quite many places actually. It's the LibreOffice core code itself, and then the TrueType library and Halfbus library and Cairo library, and I probably forgot some, but they all want to open these fonts. And this opening happens in the Git process, so that had to be then fixed some way because the Git process doesn't have access to these font files.